If you have been doing woodworking for even just a little while, or you've been doing some DIY here and there, you will definitely have scraps of wood. And for most of us, we keep stacking those. You can see I have a bit of those in the corner there, hoping that someday I'll have the perfect use to put them into. Well, today's video is one good example. I'm taking scraps of 2x4 and making them into something unique or beautiful, or whatever you might want to call it. So let's jump right into the process. So as you might have gathered from the description or from the intro, what we're trying to get here is to make a perfect star, and we need 5 pieces that needs to be cut into this diamond shape, as you can see on the right hand side there. So we're starting off with a 45-degree angle, and then to get the tip or the top part of the diamond, we'll need the 2 sides to be cut to an angle of 31.6. The miter saw that I'm using has a stop at 31.6. It also has a stop at 45 degrees, as most miter saws do. Well, most miter saws that have a stop. So I start with cutting at 45 degrees, and then you'll see me moving the miter stop to 31.6 degrees to do the top sides of the diamond shape. I will be showing the measurements as I go, but these pieces I'm cutting them at a length of 9 inches, and then to get the arms of the star, I will basically cut this in half at 4.5 inches, and then make the 31.6 degree angles on those halves. So for each one of these 9-inch pieces that I'm cutting, I'll get two sides of the star. So remember, like I said in the start, the star will be made up of 5 points. So essentially you'll end up with 6 points based on the method that I'm using. So the first 9-inch piece has been cut, and then I'm going to cut that into 2 at 4.5 inches. And then the process is the same for the next 9-inch pieces. So as you can see, those 9-inch cuts were made at 45 degrees on both sides. When we get to doing the points on the stars, that's when the 31.6 degrees will be used to get the angle, which will allow all of the points to nest together and give you a perfect center of the star. So I'm using the remaining piece from the first 9-inch that I cut to serve as a stop block to keep the pieces that I'll be cutting at the 4.5 inch that I need to cut the 9-inch into. So the two 4.5-inch pieces that I need to cut, I'm using what was left over from my initial cuts as a stop block. I need to have a way to hold that piece together to keep my hand away from the blade. I just use a scrap piece of wood to hold it from the top, but better still, later on you will see me using a jig or a tool that I made out of that same scrap piece of wood and added a material that adds some friction to hold the pieces onto the miter saw, so my fingers are not close to the blade when it's making the cuts. And later on I'll share a video of that jig or tool that I made. Now it was time to move the miter saw to the 31.6 degrees to make the angle cuts on the top sides of the diamond shape. And that's it. I got my two first trial pieces cut to the angles and they look good, so I grabbed another piece of scrap wood and I'm ready to cut the remainder of the pieces. As you can see, after cutting the first one, I just used it to mark out the spot to cut the next one. Now that I'm going to be cutting a few more pieces, it was a good time to add a clamp with my stop block there to make sure I'm paying attention to the cuts and not having to support the stop block with my hand while trying to make the cut as well. So basically I made this hold down stick using a scrap piece of 1x4, and I added non-slip silicone to it to add some friction to help hold down the pieces whilst I'm cutting the angles. So I have a total of 6 cut, but I only need 5. So this is basically how you put them together. I'm going to make another one, but add in some more detail to the sides of it. So stick around and we'll jump right into that. So I'm onto my sort of nicely packed pile of leftover 2x4, and I'm looking for some decent pieces that I will use for this next version of the star. So once I found a good one, I cut off whatever ends were of the piece, and then I took it to the table saw to rip the ends of it, because I was trying to go off a straight edge on this one as opposed to just the normal factory edge of the 2x4. So I cut off just a little piece off the ends of the 2x4, so that will actually reduce the width of the 2x4 from the 3.5 inches that it normally is to, I think it was probably around 3 inches wide, which is fine. The size doesn't really matter, as you will see. And in this next step, I'm using my router to add a beveled edge to all 4 sides of the 2x4. This you could potentially do on a table saw. You can just set the angle that you prefer on the table saw and make sure the blade is lowered to the height that will compensate to give you this angle on the 2x4. Obviously you will have to set the rib fence at a width to allow you to get the angle that you want to cut. Maybe I'll do another one where I'm using the table saw as opposed to just using a router. So the same process here as with the first one that did not have the bevel sides. I did, the lengths are at 9 inches wide, and then I cut those into half at 4.5 inches wide to make the points of the star. But there is another step coming up that was not on the first one, which if you saw one of my last videos where I did the lighted tree, you might pick up what's going on. So I cut all 6 of the pieces, and now I'm going to use 5 of them to put the star together. As usual, I'm using my go-to wood glue, the Tight Bond Quick and Thick. It works perfectly for this. It dries really fast and it dries clear. So you can be as generous with the glue as you would like to make sure that all the pieces are held together with a very strong bond. In fact, after putting them together, I added some extra glue on the top and all of the sides, the joints that come together. I put a little bit more glue on there just to add some more strength to the adhesion. And this is, I must say, this was one where I did not want to use any nails or screws to hold it together, because I trust that this glue will hold it perfectly together, and it did. I actually was thinking of adding some CA glue or some CA glue type adhesive to it, but once it was dry there was no need. It held really well together. This tip is totally optional. I like the dark walnut, but you can leave it as it is, natural, or paint it white like I did with the other one. So it's totally up to you. For me, the dark walnut matches all the furniture in my living room where this one will be going for Christmas. And this is the first version that I made. This one was from some really damaged 2x4. So I'm painting it white, and since only one side will be displayed at any time, it is totally fine. But I painted both sides, all sides of it white. And that's an option you can utilize as well. I'm using chalk linen white by Rust-Oleum. It turns out really nice. Now it was time to add the string lights onto it. This one is a little bit tricky because of all the different angles you can find. If you have like pieces of 1/8 plywood, you can use it to hold it in there with some CA glue. I just temporarily held it together using transparent tape, which I think works just fine. And since this is for my house, I don't think it matters. But if this was something I was making to sell, then I'll think of some other ways to make it more presentable. But like I said, this one I'm making for myself, for my own house, so I'm just using the transparent tape there, which you would barely see, and it helps too with the fact that when it gets lighted, you don't even notice that the tape is there. this next step is also optional. You can have the stars standing on top of a table or next to your Christmas tree, on the dining table or on the mantle, wherever you want it standing. But I want it to be hung on the wall. You can hang it over the mantle, you can hang it over your TV, which is what I'm doing. That's where this one is going to go. Or you can hang it, somewhere close to your dining room or your living room. You can also have it hanging on your hallway or in the bedroom. So wherever you'd like it to be, you can hang it there. And that's the flexibility with having the ability to be able to hang it on the wall there. So I hope this video inspires you to give it a go. Remember, all you need is a little bit of faith and some DIY action. Good luck with your build, and until the next video, God bless you, and I hope you have a tangible experience of God's love. I'll see you in the next video.